Hello everybody and welcome to a very special members interview today. I'm Tom Pinder, Vice Chair of the Society of Sports Therapists Communications Group, and I'm delighted to be talking to Ed Pratt, member of the Society of Sports Therapists, lecturer in sports therapy and rehabilitation at Leeds Trinity University and owner of Ed Pratt Sports Therapy Clinic. And we're also talking to 12 times British shot put champion Scott Lincoln, who has recently qualified for the Tokyo Olympics, which begin in just a few weeks' time. Many congratulations, Scott, and welcome to you both.
Thank you.
So starting with you, Ed, you've worked with Scott for over a decade. So how and where did you guys first meet?
Yeah, so I when I first graduated, I worked at my local rugby club that I previously played for. I used to play with Scott's brother Liam, and Liam said to me one day when I was doing a clinic at the rugby club, could he bring his brother over, who was a shot putter, and his dad brought him over, and that's where it all started. I think you were about 15, 16 at the time. Yeah. And then the sort of Scott's been like my sponsored athlete, if you like, for years now. At the time, I was working with a couple of triathletes, two really talented triathletes, and then they moved away, and so that opportunity for the sponsored position came up, and so I offered it to Scott, and then we've been working together since then. I can't even remember when that was, but it's probably about 10 years ago itself, something like that.
And Scott, you've won British Championships 12 times in that sort of space of time. But this is your first Olympics. So tell us about your journey to where you are now, and when did you make the qualifying distance, and what was that moment like for you?
Yeah, this is my first Olympics. Obviously worked my way up through the rankings so I was sort of like a junior when I met Ed and started working with Ed. I just sort of progressed through to become sort of number one in the UK, and then went up an age group, had the people to chase, worked my way up again to number one in the UK, and then got into the senior ranks and worked my way up through them as well. And yeah, as I say, 12 British titles on the way, and then finally qualified for the Olympics this year. So did it in Czech Republic at the start of last month. So it's been like a mega whirlwind ever since.
And what was that moment like when you realised you had qualified for the Olympics?
Yeah, I can literally take you back through the whole thing. Absolutely mental. Yeah, as soon as it left my hand during the throw, before it even landed, I knew it was good. I knew I'd qualified, but it didn't quite register until they started pulling the tape through. And then I literally saw the distance on the top of the stop board where they measure it to, and just went crazy.
Nice. So this next question is for both of you, but I'd like to ask it to Ed first. So you've both been working closely together for a long time. How important is that relationship between sports therapist and athlete in terms of being successful in performance and obviously avoiding and rehabilitating from injury and what have you?
Yeah, it's vitally important. It's the same in some ways and different to if you're working with any other patient in your clinic. You've got to develop that therapist-patient rapport. They've got to trust in you. They've got to get what you're trying to do with them as an athlete, as well as at the same time you have to try and understand where they're at as an athlete in terms of if they're injured, in terms of that rehabilitation process, or if they're not injured in terms of what it is that they're trying to achieve. So it's massively important, and it's obviously developed over the years. And sometimes I think Scott comes to see me and he just gets 45 minutes of me making fun of him, really. But what it does in those sessions is that hopefully he's allowed to relax. He feels able to relax. He's able to offload some of his stresses and his concerns, and as a result we're able to talk it through and see where he's at, and that only develops over time, really. And we're at a point now that the key thing is sort of after he qualified, I was reflecting on this a little bit, and the key thing is that he's got there with no major injuries. I haven't, because of the way we worked together over the years in this build-up, there was no major injury that we suddenly had to sort out and get him ready. He was ready. Physically, he was ready. It meant that when he threw that qualifying throw, he arrived physically and mentally prepared to do it. And that comes from working together over the years, understanding each other, and speaking to Scott. Scott comes to me and says, "Oh, I've got a bit of a niggle with this," and it's like, all right, well, let's just step back from this portion of your training, but it doesn't mean you can not do other aspects of it. Speak to his coach, send a message either via Scott or direct to his coach, Paul Wilson, who we've only met a few times, but have talked several times and communicated via Scott, constantly throughout his career. And so then we're able to just say, right, well, I really don't think you should be doing this at the moment because it's not helping or it's aggravating this niggle. So let's just step back. We'll put these exercises in instead. And you can only do that if you've got that trust between the athlete, yourself, and the coach. So yeah.
Yeah, I think shadowing that, for me, it makes it really important that we, like, obviously the relationship me and Ed have, it just makes it so simple for me because I literally don't have to worry about, obviously, if you have a little niggle or whatever, you do think about it and worry about it. But when I go and see Ed, like, he sort of knows what I've been through, like what's happened to my body, the niggles I've had, and it's just handy to turn up and him understand and sort of, like just have a quick checkup over everything that's been a niggle in the past, or certain times of the year I get similar injuries that we've managed to sort of plan around and try and adapt so that I don't get them and things like that, especially like having time off at the end of the year. I come back and end up with just like lots of little niggles and things, and so we've just introduced new ways of training and things I can be doing in my off season to help with that. So, but yeah, I mean, it's I think it's a really big part of obviously Ed knowing me quite closely, and it just that comfortable environment where you can go in and literally just see him for what you need, what niggles. He knows everything that's been wrong with me since I've pretty much started. So
yeah.
And there's an important aspect to this as well, in that obviously the sessions between me and Scott have increased during this season, if you like. It is a massively important season. Prior to that, it wasn't, although Scott's in as like the sponsored athlete, if you like, it wasn't that he was in every week, that I wanted him in every week. You've got to think about what we're trying to do with our patients here. And this, again, it applies whether they're going to the Olympics, like Scott, or whether they're not, whether they're playing at the local tennis club or something, is what are we trying to achieve with them? I don't want Scott to feel that he is absolutely, needs me if something goes wrong. I want him to be able to manage and look after if he gets a bit of a niggle, because otherwise what happens whilst he's away? Scott travels all over Europe for competitions, and whilst he's away and something doesn't go right, it's like, well, I'm not there to sort it out. So we have to have those strategies in place, if you like. He has to have the knowledge to look after and manage anything that comes up. And there's been situations that have arisen where he's not been sure about something, so he just sends me a message and we have a phone call and we discuss it. But ultimately it's Scott that needs to sort it out. You've got to develop and help build these robust athletes, not only in the coaching and the strength training and the conditioning that they do, but also in terms of in managing anything that comes up where it sort of goes a bit wrong, if you like. Like, I'm not going to be in Tokyo, unfortunately. So we've got to ensure that when he goes out to Tokyo, and this is sort of again built up through that relationship, that he knows, because of stuff we've done in the past, what he needs to be doing when at the appropriate time. Yeah.
So sticking with something that Scott just referred to. What did you know about shot putting prior to meeting Scott, Ed? So how important is that to sort of understand your athlete and understand your athlete's sports and the demands of that sport?
Yeah, so
it's such a shame that you can't show your technique.
Yeah, Scott knows it would be easier for me to say what didn't I know. No, I knew a shot put. I've always watched athletics growing up, and I've always watched all athletics, not just like the running events and things like that. I've always watched
glory events,
shot put, and always been interested in that. But I didn't do shot put at school apart from in PE lessons, and I certainly didn't do it since. So not masses when it comes down to it. I had my ideas of how Scott should be as an athlete, is who's part of it is that he needed to pack on quite a lot of weight and quite a lot of bulk. And so my view there was, well, does it need to be lean muscle? But when you look at the evidence and the bit of research that there is around shot put, then the answer is no. You just needed to get bigger. Obviously, you need to get stronger as well. But the sort of body fat side of things didn't really seem to matter too much. And then in terms of biomechanics, I went and read up on the biomechanics. But more importantly, I spoke to Scott, I spoke to his coach. Scott's technique has changed over the years as he's developed, as he's got bigger, as he's got more powerful and faster. I think initially you were doing the glide throw, weren't you? And then you changed to the rotational throw. So, you're like, right, I feel like I'm just getting the hang of this, and we've got this glide throw sorted, so where they slide from the back of the circle to the front of the circle, and then he changed it to the rotational throw. And I was like, I'll just go and start again. Well, it's one of the wonderful things of being a sports therapist is you get to learn all this new stuff and go away and sort of read up on it. And so I didn't know very much, but I think it has been important, because you've got to understand, certainly with the way you throw now, like the rotational forces that go into it, where these little niggles come from, and looking and saying, well, the force is generated from the feet and is a rotational force that goes right the way through the body. We've got to think about what he's doing with his hips as he's driving through, what he's doing, the way he's presenting his torso sort of in line with the throw, and the way he's extending that arm and that wrist. And if something's going wrong somewhere within that chain, then is that causing an issue? And that is really hard to identify, because there are so many degrees of freedom in terms of the movement. But it's really important that you try and understand it, so that you can then say, well, let's look at this, or let's look at it in a different way. Let's provide some different exercises.
So, Scott, how important is it for you to be able to tailor your sort of rehab and treatment to shot putting specifically then?
Yeah, I think it's majorly important. And as I have progressed, and as I have got stronger and faster and things, like, the body's obviously under more strain, which is something that we've managed year on year. But yeah, I think it's hugely important. Always try and keep on top of it, even when I'm away. I try and keep on top of stuff, and whether it just means having a resistance band in the room and doing bits, like going onto the side of the bed or whatever you've got, like a door or whatever. Like we seem to manage a plan whilst I'm away, and yeah, I think it's hugely important.
And to be able to keep things specific to shot putting as well, I'm guessing that helps in terms of your adherence, if you like, and how much you put into certain management strategies and what have you, rather than it just being a generic sort of plan, if you like.
Yeah, for sure. So we obviously, as you get more into the specific type of stuff in the gym and stuff, as you're getting heavier, it usually puts a bit more strain on the body, and that's when the niggles starting to rise. And obviously it's just about, like you say, just managing them through, and yeah, seeing how they go.
I think when I first started working with Scott, I was working at the rugby club, and used to dealing with big lads, and I think that that helps. And like Scott says, a lot of it is actually not to do with the shot put, but to do with the lifting heavy and just the volume of training. And the thing we haven't mentioned in this that is important is that Scott's not funded really. He's a builder. Okay, so he goes and does a morning weight session, and then goes to work for his dad and works on a building site, whether he's, sat in a digger all day or, whether he's bent over sort of bricklaying. It's those things on top of his training that we've then got to deal with that then maybe build up over a period of time. So, you might do that, have a throwing session in the morning, go to work all day, and then go and do, a lifting session in the morning, go to work all day, and then do a throwing session in the evening. Well, that is just volume, time on his feet, not resting, not getting the recovery in. And so we've talked about that quite a bit. And that's where it becomes specific to shot put, because you've got to include and assess and review, if you like, all these other factors that impact on it.
Yeah, cool. So this question is really for either of you. I'm not really sure which one of you is going to be able to answer this one better, but these Olympics are going to be very different with no crowds. Obviously, there's serious concern about COVID. Are the protocols strict both for travel and when you're out there, Scott? Is it a case of they have specific measures in place for the athletes as opposed to everyone else that are going there? And what do you know? Topic.
It's absolutely like crazy how strict it is. So I'm in an email sort of group with obviously the British Athletics Olympic Committee, and they're sending us emails like daily, because obviously people are flying out. It was pretty much daily since about the 10th, I think. Obviously it's the 14th, 15th today. Yeah, and it's like some guy's being turned away because he didn't download the app onto it. So we've got to download all these apps onto our phone that track us whilst we're in Japan. We've got all this paperwork to print out, and there's like literally about 20 emails that we have to go through, and like everyone's listed what we need. And the COVID has just made it really strict, so that we've been on testing for the last 14 days. Well, it'll be 14 days before you fly. I did my 96-hour test yesterday. I've got my 72-hour one today, and then another 3 lateral flows until I fly on Sunday. So the testing's been crazy. The paperwork list looks absolutely crazy, so I'm hoping I don't forget anything there. But there's been one of the emails that came through actually said that a guy, I'm not sure what sport he's in, but he's part of Team GB, and he got the flight over, landed at 10:55 in Japan. He was there for 2 hours, had 2 bits of wrong paperwork, so they sent him back on the same flight home. So it was literally a 24-hour stint straight out, and then he's back in square one. So yeah, it's pretty intense. It's quite stressful at the moment because I feel like I need to get everything sorted and sort all these apps out and things. But it is what it is. You just got to go through with it.
Yeah, so we add into that, like, this is where, Scott's support network can help. We can't do anything with the paperwork that he has to prepare, the stuff that he has to sign, the stuff that he has to download. But there's someone that we haven't mentioned in this as well who's come in this year, who's been helpful, is Chris Rowley, Dr. Chris Rowley, who's provided some sports psychology support. And this is where really, if Scott has concerns, or if there's something that has been sent that he doesn't really understand, if it relates to, travel and looking after yourself while you travel, then that's maybe something I can help with. If it relates to sort of sports psychology, and there are these services available to him while he's out there, but we don't know what they're like exactly in terms of how they're accessed. Is it access like via a Teams meeting like we're doing now, or will it be face to face, or how it's going to work? And so if there's things like that Scott's not sure about, then that's why we're there to help, and we'll all basically be on call until it's competed and finished, and and then we'll be there when he gets back if there's anything that we need to sort out and stuff. And you are gonna have to read through all that paperwork yourself, and I don't envy you at all, but it's stuff like that that's like you just get bombarded because it's happened over such a short time, that actually that's where you just need to say, right, I need to talk to someone about this, whether it's does this just make sense or does it whatever. And that's what that wider team of coach and myself and Chris are there for.
Mm-hmm.
And when
so
you get
what you're saying is you're going to read them to me.
my dulcet Yorkshire monotone reading it to you, you wouldn't take any of it in. Oh, okay.
When you get over there, Scott, are you in a bubble? Do you have? I presume you'll have at least one or two people going with you in terms of coach and what have you. Or
so my coach isn't actually allowed.
Right.
He's not able to go. So yeah, there's so I'm flying out with I think about 7 others in track and field. I'm presuming there'll be all different sports on the plane, weightlifting maybe, or shooting, or I don't know, to be honest, until I get there. But yeah, we all travel together. We have a quarantine which has just been extended from 6 days to 10 and now 14 days whilst we're over there. But we're still allowed to train. That's part of the paperwork that we have to sort out. It's 14-day like training plan basically to allow us into the country, of where we're going to be, what we're going to be doing pretty much every half hour of the day. So yeah, it's we've got to do obviously all of that, and then yeah, we just fly over in our little group and bubble over there until I don't know how strict it's going to be over there. I'm presuming very, because obviously they're in a state of emergency now. The head people don't want the Olympics to go ahead, so they're making it awkward for us. And yeah, so I guess it's just a matter of waiting and seeing when I get over there and see what happens from there.
So finally, Scott, then what are you hoping for from the Olympics? What are you hoping to achieve?
Well, this is actually my first real major. I've done sort of European team championships before and European throwing events, but this is like technically my first proper major. Never done any Europeans, never done any Commonwealths, never done any Worlds. So I guess get as much as I can out of the experience is one of the big things on the list. But in a performance side, I want to make the final, which will probably mean throwing near to my PB, if not a PB, to do, which I feel well capable of doing. And for British throwing, it would be a huge thing to have someone in the final. I don't even know when the last time was that they had someone in the final. So, I mean, 2012 was the last time we had a British male in the shot put. And it was a lot of it was due to obviously being in London, so they were allowed to take people that were a bit under the standard and things. But to qualify outright on the first one in a long while. So yeah, just to make the final would be a pretty incredible achievement for me.
Good. And Ed, do you have any last minute tips for Scott?
Yeah, loads with all my Olympic experience. No, the key thing is we spoke about this off air just briefly, and Scott knows that he performs well when he's enjoying it. It's an amazing experience in many ways. This season, if you like, has already been. I've been pinching the words of Chris Rowley here, but this season's already been a success, and so it's like you just got to go out and you've got to enjoy it. You got to go follow the rules. If you're not sure about something, phone us, but mainly just enjoy it and have an amazing time. And
that's basically saying Ed's concerned I'm going to get arrested for doing something I shouldn't.
No. Yeah, maybe a little bit.
Well, thank you so much, both of you, for giving up your time today to speak with us. Have a fantastic Olympic Games, Scott, and we'll be watching with great anticipation. And we wish you every success.
Thank you very much.
All right, guys. Cheers. See you later.